Hello, my name is Trydar. Welcome to the 25,000 subscriber special. Today, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at a world I first started 10 years ago, back in 2014. And it's really going to show with some of the builds, like if you look behind me here, you know, it's stone bricks as far as the eye can see. This is a lot of this was built in the days before diorite even existed. So that's, the color palette in older Minecraft was a lot more limited. You can also see nascent versions of what would eventually become Roman and medieval walls here. You can see, we've got standard modular towers, modular wall segments, just an arch between two towers for a gateway, some extra roofs up there. We can see on the road here what would eventually become things like the Roman road tutorial and all of those patterns. For the courtyards and everything, if we take a look at this here, we can see it's really only in two colors, but I was trying to do a pattern of something I thought looked reasonably medieval. But this world is just dying to have a third color added to it, and we didn't really get very far with that. In place of diorite, I was trying to use things like the smooth stone slabs and everything for the arches here. But they didn't, they just didn't quite work, I thought. Over here, we can also see my first real experience off in the distance of hitting the build limit. Because I had never built anything tall enough to hit the build limit. But over there, my first real attempt at a medieval cathedral is there. And you can see the tower, it should really go up another 50 blocks. Have a nice pointy top, but it has a very unsatisfying blunted top because there was no more blocks. And one of the reasons is because this world here is also one of the first worlds that I tried to do a custom world painted map on. What would eventually become the North world and everything. Well, I tried to do that here, and I tried to make large islands. And I was going to, build on each island. They were going to be a little different. They were going to be all connected together, and it was going to be really neat. But as you can see behind me here, we have all this bare grass. And this wasn't here originally because all this was oceans. And behind me over there were the other islands and everything. But they all got filled in because, as you can see, I was just running out of space right and left. And because it's the... You see, the world I terraformed for this was way too small. I had this problem that every world I kept making, I made a few more after this, that they were just way too small, and I was outgrowing them. And that happened for a few more worlds after this until I came to the conclusion that I needed to just buckle down and make an absolutely huge map that was going to take me like 10 years to finish. And that's how the North project started. But we're going to see, as I said here, nascent versions of things, and also some other things that I've probably forgotten about that I want to redo. Here we've got like a little medieval chapel. All this is it's a piece of the larger cathedral, sliced off and made into a chapel, but I don't want to take a look at it yet because it's going to spoil some things later on. Let's go over here. What is it? Is that floating? Oh dear. Okay, well I didn't even put this one back on the ground. This is actually an interesting structure. It's something that I want to actually rebuild this in the future. Or like maybe a good medieval house, or medieval manor house actually. And this is supposed to be a model of the Grange of Augustus Pugin's house. And it's my first time trying to make the house. The scale is all wrong. It needs to be doubled. But a lot of the detailing's pretty good, if you can forgive the brick roofs at the time. I was just desperate to try and add something in for color. There wasn't like, we only had like 3 types of wood, and I don't really like any of them for that roof. But over here, we can see a sort of a medieval jousting arena. You can kind of see a bit of the hippodrome in this, because, it's got a Roman pediment over here. Very early versions, we're going to see this later on in the video, of the Corinthian order that I tried to do. I was trying to flute the columns here by adding the walls in there. I stopped doing that because it just didn't... The color combination with that just didn't work. very well. I mean, we can see sort of, you know, we can see an entablature here. It's not very detailed. We can see a pediment here too, but yet again, it's not very good. It's missing, you know, it's missing the raking cornice for one. The entire thing should hang over another block at this level. And I'm going to be rather critical of my old builds, by the way, as we go. I'm going to tell you everything's wrong with them. We also have some suggestions of some aquateria up here. You know, I think we ended up making better versions of these, for sure. We can also see here the Roman soldier statue, though. I've had those for a long time. These actually looks like they got clipped into each other. But anyway, I was trying to make like, I was trying to actually recycle the hippodrome and make like a jousting arena. So that's what happened here. You can see I tried to slap some towers on the ends of it and the archways and everything. It didn't really work. So one of the other things over here I built, this is worth taking a look at. I wanted to make like a chamber for like the Knights of the Round Table or something. And I sliced a bit off the cathedral, you know, way over there, and I rotated it around on itself a couple of times to make this octagonal structure that was going to be held up with a series of flying buttresses, and it's got a pitched roof and everything on it there. This is my first real attempt at making flying buttresses. You can see they are entirely too thick. You know, I mean, it was a good attempt, but the buttresses don't need to be that thick. It's entirely overbuilt. It's against all the rules of Gothic. They're supposed to be light and airy, and they're way too heavy. So if we go up here, I never installed the table, but down here there was supposed to be, you know, like a Knights of the Round Table in here and everything. But up here you can see my first real attempt at trying to make one of these rib-vaulted octagonal domes. Which, yeah, I've made better versions of this since. But it's alright for a first attempt, I suppose. I mean, it's only got, you know, the quartz ribs on here are quite messy. They're really too big. And there's no ribbing detailing on the other sections up there in the vaulting and everything. The stained glass windows look good, though. But all the arches in here, though, they're all at different heights. Like this window stops here, and it's, you know, you can see it's out of line with this window over there. This is, you know, it's a lot of things wrong with this building. That's why I've never developed that into anything else. Because the whole thing needs to be rebuilt from scratch. Same with one of these as well. Now we can see over here, I was trying to add in some housing. If you're familiar with my medieval house tutorial, these are basically just large copied and pasted and stacked and collided into each other versions of that. But the houses in Freeport in Norath are gonna, you know, look a bit more like this sort of style, but they don't have roofs on them yet. A lot of those roofs need to be rebuilt and everything. So here, of course, we have a very obvious beacon. And this is going to lead us into taking a look at the medieval cathedral, which is what I want to stop and take a look at next. So I was trying to do a little courtyard in between that, out here, with a little open-air baldacchino, sort of, where we have the beacon right there. We can see it's held up by 4, you know, Proto-Corinthian columns and a couple more columns up here and everything. And if we go more this way, we can see the front facade of the medieval cathedral. We can see some familiar things. If you're familiar with Bedrock Cathedral, if you've seen that video, it's the Freeport Cathedral in Norath. So, if you look at that, you can see some things that started here that got continued on with that one. Most notably, like the rose window. I mean, I've completely rebuilt the rose window from this. I think over here, I think this was supposed to be a bell tower. Actually, let's go take a quick look inside here. Yeah, This was supposed to be a bell tower. You can see some bells hanging up there. In fact, let's take a look at that. I've obviously never finished the bulk of the thing at the bottom there. But, you know, up here you can see I was trying to have a suggestion of some bells. Although it doesn't quite work because all the bells are like the same size. See? They're like the same size, so they're all going to make the same note and just cause a cacophony, probably, more than anything else. Oh, I came out the wrong side of the building. Let's see. Where are we? There we are. So it looks like the fountain went dry on us. Probably a copy and paste error. But I was trying to make a fountain design here, but this one's too overcomplicated. Like it needs to get rid of the nether brick and have another type of stair and be a bit more simplified. But you know, I was trying to make one of those very nice wedding cake fountain type things. And this is one of the first real attempts I was trying to do that. You know, it's okay for what it is, but it's not, we can do a lot better than that today. I mean, it's only been 10 years. I hope I can do a lot better than what you see here today. So let's take a look at the medieval cathedral. As I said, this is my first real attempt at making a medieval cathedral. And I learned a lot from this, but you're going to see some obvious mistakes. I'll try to point them out as we go. One of the first mistakes actually are the doors. They don't have any arches over them. It's just like the window ends down here, and there's doors. I mean, you know, if we were going to make an Art Deco cathedral, that's what we would want to do, but that's not what we wanted to do for this, and that was a big problem with this particular design. So if we go inside and just, you know, take a look, we can see there's more English influence in this cathedral than there is French per se, because French cathedrals they go up high, and English cathedrals tend to go long. And you can see in this one, I went on for quite a ways, all the way back there, so it's got more English influence than French. But these days, my cathedrals are more French-like than that. It's also very overbearing. Like the columns and everything, like, you know, Gothic architecture is supposed to be light and airy. What you're supposed to do is remove as much wall as possible and replace it with as much window as possible. But that's not what ended up being done here. We can see my first real attempt at making a rose window back here, though. I thought it was okay for what it was. But the tracery with the stairs and the stone bricks and everything is just wrong. There's only like 2 types of stained glass in it too, which, you know, is not ideal. We've got some more windows up here. You know, the tracery in them is just so-so. The arch design, though, was a real winner from this, as well as the vaulting. Because this ended up being the vaulting that I pretty much used ever since I first made this. And with more advanced and refined designs of this is what appears in Bedrock Cathedral. But this was my first real attempt at trying to do it. Like over here to the sides, these are a little bit more rough than those. The Gothic arches here are pretty good. But the filler isn't quite right. Like, especially along here. Like, you can see the arches here are stone bricks, but they should really be quartz to echo all the other arches. It's a big mistake in this building. Because I was trying to make stairs get more resolution out of these blocks than what is actually there, and you can clearly see the mismatch between the two of these. So that's one reason, particularly in the Roman stuff. You'll notice I do all my arches, I just do them out of full blocks. And the reason is because of everything I learned in this world here, trying not to do that, trying to get more block resolution by working in some stairs and everything, but it just doesn't quite work. This is one of those occasions where less is more. And I learned that in this building. Also, the columns here aren't quite right. They should really be really stretched out, thin Corinthian order columns, but they're not. I did manage to work in, a suggestion of a triforium up here, though. It's a really bad triforium. It's just a little stone brick hallway, but I did try to add one. But as I said, the arches and the vaults up here in the clerestory are really good, I thought. And I continued using them and refining them and making them better. Actually, one of the things that got changed from these is the arches over here are actually the same height as the ones in the middle, just about. And that is not something, that was a mistake with these. The arches should really be a bit lower down, and this section here should just be bent down. And it is in all the new stuff, but that was something that I had to learn in the process of making this building. Let's look a little deeper into the cathedral. It's going to take us a little time to get through this world today. I mean, we're already, 15 minutes into it, and we've only just now hit the cathedral, and there's like another cathedral, and lots of other buildings to take a look at. But this is not going to be one of those, quick videos. It's going to be more of a really long tour where I just talk about everything in this world before you come here and see it. Which, by the way, it's available for download in the video description. So if you want to come here and see all of this mess, you can do so free of charge. Here's another thing you might find familiar from my cathedrals. I mean, I've refined this design too. I've rebuilt this one a couple of times. But I really liked how the rib vaulting went from a square to a circle in the middle here with the oculus and everything. And looking up, we can see we've got interesting detail above that. In Bedrock Cathedral, we have one of these as well, except we've got two of them before we get up here to the top, which is, a lot better, I think. You can see here, this is very messy. I was trying to clip the vaulting below there into like a cross pattern at the top there and sort of blend it together. It looks okay from far away. The closer you get to it, the worse it looks. Which way do we get lost? Okay, that's where we came in. You can see all the way down there, the cathedral barely fits in the render distance. At least it did back then. But over here, we can see another rose window. Right here. This is the design that Bedrock Cathedral ended up using, but I put a lot more detail into the stair tracery work in that. I think I just echoed it down there as well. It looks pretty good. Well, actually, I think that one's looks different. I think I actually tried to make them different. This is the one that ended up in Bedrock Cathedral. And that was the first one I made. And this one here also, it doesn't look terrible. We can see one of the things I did get it right. The central arches here for the crossing. You can see the arches here. They're quite a bit thicker than the other ones going down the naves. And the reason for that is because you remember the truncated tower? Well, I put an awfully big tower right on top of this, which means there's an awful lot of weight. So we had to make the piers a lot thicker over here than these. And you'll notice in medieval cathedrals, a lot of them have them that way. Some of them didn't have it that way originally, and they started to fall down. And they had to just make them bigger. It's it's one of those things to look for whenever you go into a cathedral. But let's go farther to the back, towards the east end down here. Although I don't know what direction this is. If I press... Okay, yeah. For some reason, the east end is facing north. We're just, just kind of ignore that. But down here, I tried to do something a little bit more special. I tried to do a rounded apse, but with Gothic tracery and all the details and everything for the windows. A couple of altars back here with the diamond crosses in them and everything. It didn't quite work. I just copied and pasted and echoed all of that up there. But the double arches here don't really work. It should have another, it should have another bay and everything in there for that. But yeah, this had to be, this was all rebuilt as well. But this is the first real time I try to do this. I think it looks all right for what it is. But we could do a lot better. And you can notice the interior of this cathedral is also stone bricks, just like the exterior. There's not, aside from the floor, there's no color in here at all. So that, that's one of the things. Bedrock Cathedral ended up being a riot of color by the time I was finished, which most medieval cathedrals were. They were rather garishly painted, actually, because one of the reasons was, notice it's very dark in here, despite the windows. That they didn't have electric lights in ye olden medieval times. So everything was a lot darker. So even though it's painted garishly, it didn't look that way. Alright, let's get a little altitude. I want to show you the exterior of this building, which I probably should have done before we went inside. There's the bell tower we took a look at. And over here is, of course, the exterior. It's pretty tall, very pointy. I tried to add a monastery off to the left here. We can see the cloister courtyard over there. That's one of the things I want to do in the future. I want to make a medieval monastery. Not this big, but a good sized one. And up here we can see the problem I had with the build limit. That this is the first time my build naturally went up and it just stopped. And I wasn't very happy about that because I wanted to build more. Because you can see, the roof really, it stops there, but it should go, it should have a very nice pointy Gothic roof on it. So, that was one of the reasons is this particular design was left as it is. And I started scratch building a new cathedral. I did start with the bones of this one, but, I started just scratch building another one. As far as the monastery, there's really nothing inside here to take a look at. I tried to make a suggestion of a cloister down here with a fountain. And some formal gardens and everything. We have another courtyard over here. I don't remember what this was or why there is a huge hole in it. Looks like there's something else I didn't finish. Oh, okay, yeah. I vaguely remember this. I was trying to make some custom medieval tracery. Not tracery, sorry. Rib vaulting up here for this. It doesn't look half bad, but as you can see, I never really finished it. That's just, one of those things. There's a lot of unfinished projects in this world. Some of them are done. A lot of them are done, but not all. Like one that's done down here. Let's take a look at. This is what's supposed to be the chapel to the monastery. The stained glass looks pretty good in it, but as far as the rest of the detailing goes, well, when we go inside, we'll see the problems. We do have, flying buttresses. Way too many. Or rather, way too thick. This one up here is a pretty good size, but these ones down here are just not. I did try and lighten them up by removing a little bit in here, but it just didn't quite work. It's really too heavily overbuilt for being Gothic. The windows aren't half bad though. Pretty decent, I thought. The arches though are not right. But let's land and take a look inside this one. I have the door open. That's nice. So we can see here that this one looks, it just looks a lot more heavy, doesn't it? Like it looks like it's really overbearing, and that's not what we wanted to do with Gothic. I think I was trying to make this was either supposed to be a chapel or the refectory of the monastery. You can take your pick as to which one it's supposed to be. We can see here I was already moving away from using the stairs with the arches, even though here they're just done in plain stone, and they should really be echoing the courts back there. You can see it's very obviously wrong. But yeah, I was still learning what to do. All the rib vaulting here is not, it's not as curvy as it should be. It's a little more, rigid. I tried to make some more up there as well, but they don't quite work either. I mean, they're not bent down over the windows and everything else as well. The rose window looks pretty good though, with this stained glass and everything. Of course, it needs more detailing, but I was trying to make the window bigger down here as well. But of course, the entrance isn't quite right, and it's just symmetrical on both ends too. So there's nothing super special about it. But I wanted to stop in here and show it to you, because we got the wall of our monastery over here, the road around it, another wall over there. My first real attempt at making mountains in World Painter. We'll take a look at those later. They're not the best. Over here, it looks like I left some bits and pieces. I was trying, as I do, I was trying to copy and paste some of the detailing, and I was just having fun with the flying buttresses here, seeing what I could possibly make out of it. I didn't end up using that for anything. I just thought it was, one of those things. All right. So exterior of the cathedral here. Let's take a look at one of these little apses on the outside. We can see over here the flying buttresses were getting thinner, at least in terms of width. So I was slowly learning about that, but as far as the rest of the buttressing goes, I mean, these are way too thick. These are the right size, but the others are way too thick. And also, I was concerned about this massive tower falling down. So I had this gigantic pier off to the side here. Gigantic buttress with even more gigantic flying buttresses here, holding up yet another pier going up right here with big chunky buttresses coming off of it, several of those. And I put 8 of those all the way around the tower, trying to hold the thing up. So, I mean, I will leave it to you to figure out if this would stand up or not. I'm thinking not, just because this is way too overbuilt because of the weight of the stone and everything. We can see some more courtyard plaza designs down there, some very simplified ones, and some smaller fountains. Over here, this was supposed to be like a baptistry. And all this is it's the apse that we took a look at. Right there, it's just copied and pasted and rotated around a couple of times onto itself. It didn't really quite work, because if you look here, the buttresses, there should be a diagonal one here, not 2. So, it was... It's one of those things. I was experimenting with all of this, just slowly learning my way around, figuring out how to build Gothic cathedrals, how to build castles, how to build Roman stuff. We can just barely see over my head over there. That's right, there is Roman in this world. The first Roman bits were pioneered in this world. We got to work our way through medieval times, though, before we can go back to Roman times. Oh, over here we have the first version of the Gothic Town Hall that I published. I originally made this in survival for the Cube Collective server way back in 2013-14, around this time. You can see the vaulting in here is all wrong. The windows, the tracery is terrible. I thought it was really good at the time, though. It even has a suggestion of a rose window. Back here with just the plain glass, because this was actually built in the days before stained glass existed. So, let's see, what else is there to take a look at that's worth taking a look at? Well, we can see here we've got a very obvious aqueduct going through town here. My first real time making an aqueduct, as you can see, it's just arches, piers, and there's probably some water. Yeah, there's some water in there. But it's got the stair design of arch and not the full block. So that's definitely something I abandoned doing in favor of newer versions. Let's see, what else do we have to take a look at here? Oh, we have something I kind of want to rebuild one day. This here was supposed to be Westminster Hall. My version of it. You can see I just ripped the towers off the cathedral and recycled them for this. But the exterior is terrible, but the interior of this building is pretty good. Because I really like the hammer beam roof up here. You can see I tried to hang some banners, different colors, different shapes in between. Those and everything. I thought it was pretty good. I have made a newer, better version of this, and I still want to make another better version of this as well. But we're not going to see that for a while. I think that other version is actually in Freeport, NORAD. So if you want to go download that and take a look at that. Yeah, but we can see here I've just recycled the cathedral windows. You know, I was trying to make some candelabras. Some very basic designs for floor patterns in here. At least I've got 3 colors going on with that. And we're slowly working a bit more color into our builds. But like I said, this world here is mostly entirely stone bricks. Alright, let's go out the other side of that. Got a little dry fountain here. What else do we have to take a look at around here? I mean, we have a lot, really, that's packed in. I hope you got your popcorn, because as this is going to be, you know, a long episode. I'm just going to go for as long as it needs to be. It's at least an hour. So where I want to take a look at? Back over here. So here we have some designs for some very crude designs for medieval type style towers I was trying to make here. You know, with the pointy roofs and the rounded stuff. They don't really quite work. I mean, they're okay for what they are, but they could be a lot better than this. And they are going to be whenever I get around to finishing off that medieval castle. Behind it, we can see what I've taken here. I've taken those towers and I've collided them into each other and tried to make like a central tower here with like 4 towers around it. It was a pretty good idea at the time, I thought. But some of the detailing doesn't quite work on it. Now, if you will remember from the last subscriber special, not the 20,000, the 10,000 subscriber special, right here, this is where this world started at. Because this is the castle from that world. But as you can see, what I've done is I've added a lot more detailing to it. Like the 6 towers here all have rebuilt roofs. The keep here has this very overcomplicated roof design on that. A nice little flag furling in the wind. That wasn't too bad. But let's just take a moment here to go inside. I upgraded the interior a little bit with a little bit of quartz. You know, you can see the barrel vault in here is terrible. But my chair is still here. Been a long time since I've sat in this chair. Not too bad. Alright. I wonder if... Does this still work? Oh, well, how about that? So the redstone still works. This is actually my first attempt at making pistons work. And this to this day is still about the most advanced redstone I can do. As you can see, I was putting my efforts into other things here instead of redstone. You know, this is building as far as the eye can see. That's what I was spending my time on. Down here we have, oh, something interesting. We have the chapel with like the first subscriber graveyard I ever made from way back in the day. If you've been here since this one started, your sign might still be there. I would be rather shocked if anybody, you know, from the fewer than, you know, like 150 subscriber days are still around from that time. But if so, you know, you should still be buried down there in that chapel. You can take a look at that. Over here, this was Sky Castle that I took off of its islands and kind of copied and pasted here and collided it with the other castle, and I was trying to add more towers and stuff you know, houses beside the walls and everything. It really looks like a jumble, kind of. Really too messy. Over here, I was trying to make more of like a typical medieval style city neighborhood. But I was trying to make everything a bit larger. If we land down here, one of the things that the buildings are all wider at the bottom than they are at the top, which is wrong. Medieval buildings should lean over the streets and not, you know, and not sort of crowd them out like this. This is one of the, I mean, you know, one of the things I did get right that I like doing and kept doing is all the roofs you will notice in the medieval buildings, they're all sagging down in the middle here. See? But they should also be leaning out on the eaves here as well, which they're not doing. They're just all flat. See? So they should really be leaning out this way, sagging down in the middle. You know, just what you would expect from quirky medieval builds. All right, let's get some altitude. Let's see where we've been. So we take a look at that thing, the Knights of the Round Table sort of type thing. I didn't really name it, that's why I don't know what to call it. We got the jousting arena over there, the medieval cathedral, the chapel, the monasteries, the castles, Westminster Hall, and that's pretty much everything. So you'll notice down the center of the city, you know, we're moving into the second half now, there's a river. And I always wanted to have, you know, you just want to have nice little rivers going down your city. They just look nice. And over them, you will notice the very nascent first versions of what would eventually become the Roman bridge tutorial. These, it's got, you know, it's got 2 arches for that one. Back down there, it's got 1. You know, and so on and so forth. Just as much as we needed to cross the river. And, let's not spoil that. Well, we've already taken a look at it. We may as well move into the Roman section. So this city, it's what I did with it, it's got a split personality. You can see behind me here, we've got medieval. But over here, everything turns Roman. It's like they built the Roman city over here on this side of the river, and then they built the medieval city over there on that side of the river. But they kind of ended up being in reverse order, because I built all this medieval stuff before I built any of this. And we can see here one of the first versions of what would eventually become the Roman theater tutorial. I've done a couple of sizes of those. Right here. The stage is terrible. It should have a nice, you know, a nice colonnaded background and everything. I didn't know how to do that back then, so you can see it's got some medieval towers on it instead. Which is, you know, a no-no. That should not be. Alright, so this bridge here is actually on the main road that I first started on, way over there where we first started the video. Well, if you go straight through the here, this is going to lead you into the Roman city. So let's just walk over a bridge and take a look at what we can see. Alright, so ahead of us we see what would eventually become the Roman Triumphal Arch. But this was my very first time trying to build a triumphal arch, so, you know, it's pretty bad. This is before I had any of the orders of architecture that I built too, so I was really trying to wing it, and the proportions are all wrong. You know, the arches aren't quite right. But it was, you know, it was my first attempt. Over here, though, we have some market stalls for the vendors to buy things, you know, just along the streets. I was trying to add some color. Like I said, I was desperate to add some color in this world. And I was trying to do that with these multicolored little market stalls. I don't know if they quite work. Over here, we can see we have a Corinthian, you know, a pseudo-proto-Corinthian column with a very bad piece of entablature on it. You can see the dentils are all wrong. Well, actually, that's the modillions. Are all wrong on that. The cornice is completely missing, but be that as it may. Here was like the first version of the Roman statues I made, based on Evil Sketch's statues, originally. I didn't know how to make statues back then, so most of the statues here were taken from his downloads that he did, and I sort of tried to rebuild them for my own uses. Yeah, but if we want to go through our triumphal arch here, you know, we can see the vaulting up there is not very good. It's entirely made out of stone bricks. But we can see one of the interesting thing in this one that you're going to see a lot of. This is where I started to actually quite like using bedrock. You know, because the whole world was like stone bricks, cobblestone, slabs. I wanted at least another shade of gray. So that's, you know, that's what you can see here. And remember, this is before diorite existed. So instead of that, I was working with bedrock. You know, this is why there's no tutorials on any of that, because you know, bedrock's a little hard to come by in survival. So this is quite obviously a creative world, by the way. I mean, as it is. Another fountain here. This one's a little bit better than the one in the Cathedral Plaza. But, you know, these nether fences don't work at all. I was trying to work more detail in them. And for fountains, you know, less is more for those. What do we have? We have something special in front of us. We have my very first attempt at making a Pantheon. Remember, it's my very first attempt. It's really bad, but we're going to take a look at it anyway. So we can see out front we've got the pediment and everything. You know, you can just barely see a suggestion of acanthus leaves here. There is at least an entablature. There are some modillions. It's, you know, they're all spaced wrong. In here we do have some detailing in the tympanum. For the statuary, there's no raking cornice. My aquateria were getting a little bit more advanced, but they were like, I mean, they ended up becoming not winged griffin, but something more resembling Komodo dragons, I think. Which, you know, will look pretty scary for aquateria, and it's not really the vibe we wanted. But I was slowly working my way up into it. We can see, though, here, got the dome behind it, you know, made out of nether bricks. So let's go ahead and just pop inside and take a look. And for some reason, these stairs actually, you have to go down because I got the height scaling wrong for the barrel here. We can see that we just have some very thin columns. 2 levels of colonnades. They're both in the wrong proportion. But the dome isn't, you know, this is obviously not the Pantheon dome, but it does look interesting. This is before I was figuring out I could do things, you know, on 90-degree axes fairly well, but this is before I really figured out how to do things on diagonals, and then how to do things on more radian type scales. Meaning more arbitrary angles. You can see I struggled a little with getting those equidistantly spaced. But it does look impressive at first glance, but once you realize it was supposed to be a Pantheon, it's, you know, it's not very good. The oculus is way too big. The scale of this is, you know, it's got a ginormous oculus in the top of it. It doesn't have any coffered vaults up here in the, you know, the dome, anything. It doesn't have any of the niches. But like I said, first try, you know. I'm saying all this and criticizing my older builds, so you can hopefully gain some lessons. In other words, I'm trying to teach you all the lessons that I learned along the way from building these things. So I hope that's helpful. While I'm doing that, I don't really mean to be, you know, just a negative video. I want to point out mistakes in things that will give you more value. Other than just coming here and looking at a building, I want to tell you something of what I was thinking when I made it. We can kind of see here, it looks like I didn't even clip the pediment fully into the rest of the buildings. That was fun. Over here, we have what I was trying to make was like a Roman market, but like a grand market. And I was trying to do it like, but make it more like a mall. And I was trying to make it like double and triple decker. And I didn't know what else to do, so I just dropped lions on top of it, and I put towers in front of it as well for some reason. And down the middle of it, I put these huge archways, you know, because Roman. I wanted to make some really big arches. But I did try and do the stores. Let's go in one of these. See? It's my first attempt at making a little store. Yeah, there's obviously there's nothing to buy. They went out of business a long time ago. But there's supposed to be another level up here with more stores up here. I think they're just copied and pasted, kind of. Versions of those. There's supposed to be written on them what type of store that they were. Third level up here. We can kind of see some Corinthian, you know, some 1x1 Corinthian columns here with the upside down stairs for the acanthus leaves, which of course I've kept since doing that. They don't have bases down here though. That was very unsatisfying. And I was desperate for some color for these, so I was using mossy bricks, which didn't quite work for those. Let's just go out the other end of it here. Trying to make a little garden back here just to fill in some void space in the city. We took a look at that larger theater over there. We got a really small amphitheater over here. Nothing special at all about that, really. We can see I didn't have any dedicated Roman houses, so all the housing between the two cities, the two halves, they had just ended up being the medieval houses, because that's really all I had. And I was trying to fill in the space. Now, let's see, let's go back this way. I hope that I can talk for long enough to get through all of this. I believe that I can, at the rate we're going. We're about 2/3 done. We do have some custom trees over here, though. Yeah, well, you know, it's kind of my first attempt at doing custom trees. And all there really are standard trees, just with some extra blocks on them. But it's not very good. Over here, we can see an equestrian statue. And this is very little change from Evil Sketch's original design. I just put it on a podium down here and added the Roman detailing and tried to redecorate it just a little bit. You know, it didn't quite work. The Royal Equestrian statue, though, is a rebuilt version of this, though. Like, I redid the horse detailing, the cape, all that stuff. Alright, so we have some more courtyard designs. Down here, I was trying to make things a bit more Roman, which didn't really quite work out. I saw this one on a server, and I tried to make my own version from a screenshot. It didn't quite work out either. Supposed to be like, you know, some leaves and everything. And, you know, it was alright. But over here, we have a Greek temple. And this is actually one of the first versions of this I ever tried to make. No, wait. Sorry. Second version I ever tried to make. We saw the first version in the 10,000 special, but here I was trying to make it bigger. And I was trying to make Corinthian bigger. But you can see here the column diameters are too big for this facade. These should really be 2x2s. And not this pseudo 3x3 fluted version. And like I said, the entablature is all wrong, the pediment's all wrong, the aquateria all wrong. But this is one of these learning experiences. I mean, you can see here, I didn't start out, you know, building all the Roman stuff fully formed. I had to work up to it. I was just slowly working my way around these patterns, figuring out what they ought to look like. So I did get the 4x6 column right. It is sitting on a very correct Roman podium. It does have front facade orientation, but all the rest of it isn't quite right. I mean, let's go inside. I don't even remember what it looks like on the inside. Yeah, so we've got some pilasters. We've got a glowstone and mossy cobblestone and nether brick chandelier. Oh, it's terrible. You know, it's just like the ugliest chandelier ever. But for some reason at the time, I thought it looked good. But this is one of those things. Of course, the coffering up there is all wrong. It's, you know, it's... like I said, is you have to make a lot of bad buildings before you can start. You just learn how by experience in order to make good ones. Speaking of good ones, let's take a look at this one I've been avoiding. And so, people that, they always want, every time I make a Hagia Sophia design, everybody wants something more Byzantine. And this one is actually the very first, I'm not even kidding, the very first time I tried to make one. And we're going to take a look at that behind me. And I also try to explain why I wrap it in a better facade. Like I was trying to do that here. Like we've got some 3x3 Corinthian columns. They're like half the height they should be for that particular, for that height. There's no entablature. Well, there's a hint of an entablature. And there's towers stuck on it. Like if I get some altitude here, you can see we've got the central dome of the Hagia Sophia. We got the half domes off to the side. But we can see here I started trying to make changes. And I was trying to work in the towers a little bit, but I've never liked how thin the towers are that were added later to the Hagia Sophia. So I wanted to make them thicker, and I wanted to make them more medieval looking. And this is what I came up with. They got a heavy Gondorian influence in them. And there's some smaller ones over here as well, so there's like 8 towers stuck onto the building. And I was trying to match the roof to do the vaulting inside as well, but it didn't. I mean, the exterior it's kind of a disaster. I mean, it looks all right for what it is, that being a first attempt. I spent a lot of time on this building, just building, rebuilding, and everything. And I just struggled with the exterior here. I mean, I think you can kind of see that. So let's actually take a look inside and see other things that I've changed. Like we can see one of the first times I was experimenting with adding ribbing to a dome. One of the first times I even built a dome. Of course, it's a brick dome with stone bricks on it and everything. But let's actually land and take a look inside the building, and let me explain some of the changes. So on the interior, you can see we've got bedrock, but the interior doesn't look too bad. Like when I built this, I thought it was really good, and it's not too bad if we don't look too closely at it. Like the pendentives over here are pretty good. And the central detailing of the dome isn't, it's all right. It's still got, that Pantheon influence that we took a look at over there. But as you can see, it's really got a lot of Pantheon influence because I added an oculus to it. And I was trying to make a pattern up there with, like a little cross pattern as you would do in a church. When there really should be like a mosaic of Christ Pantocrator up there. But I was trying to, experiment and have some fun. But down here we can see all the color is up here, and there's nothing down here. The floor has some, but, I did manage to work in an altar. But if we take a look over here where the scalloped half domes ought to be, we'll notice that they're entirely missing, because I didn't know how to do that yet. See, I was trying to put a little half dome off to the side here, but putting in diagonal half domes over here on off axes, I didn't know how to do that, so I just kind of, I stuck more columns over here instead. There's entirely too many columns in this building. There's columns everywhere, far too many. I didn't know how to do the vaulting yet either, so it's just all stone bricks, And I was trying to push out the windows on the side here to make these little upper areas. I don't really know what it's called. Yeah. I was trying to, I was really trying to make too many changes with the building before I knew what I was doing. A lot of experimenting. I did try and do the windows up there, though. In fact, I tried to echo the windows up here. on the half domes, which I mean, it doesn't quite work. It breaks all the proportion rules because the detailing on here, like all that detailing, should really start higher up and be in line with this over here from the perspective view. It's one of those things. I didn't know that at the time, so I was just experimenting. This is one of the first really large arches that I built, though. I was quite pleased with that. I think in the I think the pendentives aren't actually that too much changed from the Roman Cathedral tutorial. Which, by the way, this building here, this eventually became, at least the interior, became the Roman Cathedral. And we're going to see something else later on. You know, there's like an early version of me heading in that direction. So, we just leave that there, come out the other side of it. And we can see here my first, you know, real attempt at doing something resembling a Hagia Sophia. And of course, it's right, you know, it's right at the center of the city. But different details like trying to push the vaults out to the side, the barrel vaults, adding an oculus, adding all these little 8 towers. It was, I had fun doing it. But as far as a building, you know, we can do a lot better than that today. Let's see. What do we want to take a look at next? So over here we just have a bit more housing. A few statues on columns just because I didn't know what else to put there. I was trying to fill space. But over here we can see a bit more trees. And market stalls down there. But we see over here a hippodrome. This is the very first hippodrome I ever built. We can see here I took the triumphal arch right here and the medieval towers. And the design isn't all that different from the hippodrome I rebuilt and published and everything in its tutorial. As we can see over here, we've got the Emperor's box. The Emperor doesn't have anywhere to sit, though, and actually the view from here isn't, you know, it's not that great. But you can see here I didn't even have the bending down the central spine. It should bend off to one direction and another, be a little curvy with those hairpin turns and everything. But as far as, you know, you can tell that it's a hippodrome. And, you know, it's alright for what it is, I suppose. It's just all the detailing on it is pretty bad. Alright, what else do we have to take a look at around here? We've got some more housing over there. We've got another temple on another podium over here. Actually, this one ended up becoming the small Roman temple. You can kind of see that with the tiered podium here with the stairs and everything. This is one of my first attempts at making that. But this version was entirely too big. And this is just a copy of that temple over there beside the Pantheon that we already took a look at. They try and put some horses on it to, you know, make it a vague suggestion that it was a hippodrome. I tried to rebuild the front of this several times. I kind of struggled with it. You can see here it's got medieval towers right beside a Roman triumphal arch. That's... no. That was bad. But I didn't have, you know, enough Roman stuff at the time. I was taking what I had and trying to make new things. Alright, so over here we can see the very first Colosseum I ever made. Not kidding, this is the very first one. Actually, I made the Colosseum first, and then I made the Hippodrome. Because if you look here, you can see, you know, that is half of the Colosseum. It's just a seating area. And it's missing the awning and everything as well. And that large theater we took a look at somewhere over there, that's just half of the Colosseum as well. Now, if we land here, we can see that, you know, detailing like the Emperor's box is entirely missing. Emperor has nowhere to sit. Very bad Colosseum in that respect. There's no awning, and, you know, it's entirely made out of stone bricks. It's got, Now, it does have functional, you know, entrances and exits, but not too many of them. It's at least round. Well, no, I've got to take that back too. Most of it is round. If we look at the floor down there, it's not quite circular. I didn't get the circle right on this one. It's kind of squished there on the sides, which, you know, it's not ideal. So it's one of those things, you know. I was learning how to make circles, and I didn't get that one right. And I can immediately tell that now, but when I was making it, it looked circular enough, and I had a lot of other things to build, so I just kind of went with it. And you know, that design got, you know, all the other circles are wrong as well. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so we've got what would eventually become the Parthenon. I was trying to make a Parthenon. I know it's only got 8 columns. It's more like a Hephaestion, I suppose, than a Parthenon. But you know, it's done in the Corinthian order too, which is wrong. Everything was done in this pseudo proto-Corinthian order. I didn't have anything Ionic, and I certainly didn't have anything Doric yet. I was trying to make here a little Acropolis. See, I was trying to make a platform with a temple on it, and then another higher platform right here with a smaller temple on it, and a bigger platform back here with just a copy of that one on it. You know, I at least give myself an A for effort. But as far as the detailing and the execution, it didn't really come off. Not great. I just dropped another tower back here just because I had extra space. It doesn't really fit. It's got a little theater off here to the side though. Very small theater. More medieval housing. Over here I was trying to make just like a little market square. Like the Roman marketplace started with this building. What I was trying to do with that. Over here we can see the very first version of what you may remember as the Roman monument tutorial. This is the very first time I made one of those. And you can see here it's got the triumphal arch, it's got a colonnade, and it's got another one on top of that with like 4 pediments, and then a dome clipped into it, and then a cupola, and then a flag. You know, pretty much the very basics of what would eventually become the Roman monument, but this is the first time I made it. And I kind of want to rebuild it again, because this isn't the version that got made into the tutorial either. I tried to put a dome in it with a beacon down here. You can see I tried to nest the domes together too. This is quite obviously the Pantheon dome copied and recycled, by the way. But I was trying to, you know, make it just a little interesting on the interior here, with like these different levels and everything. It doesn't quite work though. It's a big mess. But you know, like I said, I was learning how to do things. If we want to go out, we're going to go out this direction here. And off to our left, we have the very first version of the Parthenon that I tried to make. Very first one. Well, no. This might be the second one. But as you can see, the scale is getting bigger. The columns are getting bigger. It's in the Corinthian order, which is wrong. And, you know, the Parthenon should be in the Doric order. It shouldn't, you know, the Parthenon should be on a correct stylobate base, which it's not. It's on a podium. This is more of a Romanized Parthenon. And I don't even remember what's inside this. I don't think I even finished it. Let's take a look, and can we get inside? There's something inside here. So oh, okay. So we just have like a nest of double-tiered columns with like no ceiling. And for some reason we have iron bars in the windows. And for some reason there's also windows. which there shouldn't be in the Parthenon. And oh dear, I can't even find the door out. Let's that up. So yeah, you know, first attempt. We you know, the interior is terrible. The exterior is not right at all. But for a first attempt, it doesn't look too bad. I was pretty pleased when I made this first time, but a lot of the proportions are all wrong too. The aquaterions and everything, but you know, like I said, this world here is all about me learning things, figuring things out, trying things, seeing what worked. And it's a lot easier today to go back and look at these with a much more critical eye. Because when I first built them, they all looked really good. But now that I look at all of this stuff 10 years later, I'm like, oh, no. There's you know, there's just mistakes everywhere. And that's one of the reasons I've tried to point them out, as I said, as we have gone along in this world, taking a look at it. Because I wanted to impart to you, you know, I just didn't want to do just a standard world tour when I fly, where I fly around and say, ooh, look at this, look at that, look at this. I wanted to tell you what I was thinking for each building and try and give you some of the lessons that I learned from this world. You know, maybe you can apply this stuff in your own world. See? Oh, in this world, you have noticed there's my penchant for using netherrack as garden mulch. That's one of the things I've done ever since this world. I really like how that turned out. You know, it just pairs with the leaf blocks so nicely. And I used it everywhere. You know, every place I had something left over, I tried to put in either a market stall or a garden. Over here we have a horse triumphal arch. For some reason. All I really did was I took the main triumphal arch and I just clipped off the sides to get a smaller one. And of course got all the medieval housing around here. I at least did add, for the Roman areas, I at least did add colonnades down here at the ground level. And let's go inside one of these. Okay, yeah, that's just a copy and paste of all the other stuff we already took a look at. Here's a gate on the other end, another courtyard, which means we have come pretty much full circle on this. There are a few more things to look at, though. We've only gone down to Main Street. There's a few more other things up here I want to show you. Before we get away from this world, I want to talk about. We can see over here, of course, you know, it's a Roman world. I had to work in an aqueduct somewhere, now didn't I? That's what I tried to do over here. Trying to do a double-decker aqueduct down here into a large cistern, which, you know, you can see here, it's a, you can see here that there's a lot of, you know, Pantheon influence in the cistern, when there really shouldn't be. I mean, we've got a ginormous oculus up here that is not going to do any good at all with keeping debris and rain out of the cistern. But I was just, you know, I was just trying to make a cistern anyway. And over here, we want to follow the aqueduct out of town for a while. Because I'm going to go over here for a moment. And these are actually the very first mountains in World Painter I tried to make. And the detailing is not good. You can see there's, you know, there's like half of a mountain here, really. I mean, they're entirely too pointy, that they're way too smooth, they don't have any detailing. The snow is just, you know, the snow goes from the top all the way to the bottom when there really should be a snow line. In things, I did try, you know, I tried to ram the aqueduct into the mountain because somehow we're getting snow meltwater from the aqueduct, but there's no collection reservoir back here for that, so that didn't work out very good. Now back here we've got one of the first volcanoes I tried to make. There should be some magma down there. Yep. Very first time I tried to make a volcano. I tried to line it with obsidian. Didn't work very well. Some of the first coastlines. There's no sandy beaches or anything. There's nothing in the oceans. It's, you know, Like I said, this is the very first time I tried to make a World Painter world, and then I straight away tried to build on it. And I learned from this that this world was entirely too small. Uh, because the city just kept expanding and expanding. And it was, you know, you can see here the walls are right up against the mountains. And all the forests ended up being chopped down, and there's no foothills to these mountains either. It was a yeah, it was a big mess. I didn't make another world like this until I made my Norath world. And for that one, I spent like a year learning how to terraform and making the size of world I wanted for that one, because I knew from this world that you know, it just had to be bigger. So keep that in mind when you make your worlds. You know, you don't want to outgrow your world. You know that you get the right size of world when you get something that you half think is too big, but you half think isn't big enough. See? So when you're constantly on the fence between it being, you know, sometimes not too big, sometimes too big, sometimes too small, you know, right in the middle, you want to find that sweet spot where the world is just the right size. Over here, we can see, of course, the Hagia Sophia, and we can see something that didn't show up until the world I made after this, because, you know, I told you I really wasn't happy with the exterior, and this was me trying to fix that. And if you're at all familiar with my Roman cathedral tutorial, you're going to recognize some of that in here. You know, like the front facade. Here we've got 6 columns pediment, and then we've got 4 columns off to the side. I kept that, and then we've got the tier behind that. What I did dispense with was the column, the columns, were the towers. See, instead of 8 towers, I put it down to 4. But these didn't quite work. Like here, if we, you know, we have all this void space in here where the central facade of the Hagia Sophia, you know, in here, is disconnected from all of this by quite a lot. And I had to figure out somehow to meld these two together and fill all this void space, but have the interior I wanted. And I still, whenever I made the model for this, I did not know how to do that. That was one of those things, you know, you can see here, I was trying to figure out how to do it. And the dome, you know, the large dome is entirely missing from this as well. There are some new things on the inside we ought to be able to, well, we should be able to take a look at if I had left a door in here. So if we go inside, we can see some different detailing from what we saw previously. And most notably, I finally figured out how to do off-axis diagonal half domes right here. So we can see it's, you know, it looks a bit more like the Hagia Sophia, at least from this point on upwards. But yeah, what I built here and refined, this would eventually make its way into being the Roman cathedral tutorial. See? Now I think you can see that if you're at all familiar with the building, you can see where I started with that. Because I first started with the more traditional Hagia Sophia, and then, well, you know, if you've seen any of my episodes, you know that I just can't help myself but add. I just keep adding things. So that's what I did here. You can see over there I added 8 towers and some different detailing and an oculus and everything. That didn't quite work. So over here I was trying to add some more classical detailing here. But you can see how it overpowers the tiny building that's set down inside of it. See, I mean, it looks bigger on the inside, but when we get on the outside here, it doesn't quite work now, does it? And there's also something over here I want to go take a look at as well. It shouldn't be too far, if I remember correctly. I see something. Ah, yes. So over here, we see one of the first versions of what would eventually become the Roman estate. And those of you that have built the estate should be familiar with that. I was trying to make a really big pool, some formal gardens, a nice house with, you know, some stairs and everything here, some chimneys, and all of that. You know, it's got nice bedrock Corinthian pilasters and netherrack mulch for the gardening and all that, and I don't even remember what's inside. Oh yeah, I was trying to do a grand staircase here. I finally figured out to use nether quartz ore. I was trying to make like a Titanic style grand staircase here with the stairs and the dome and everything. But this is like half the house. It's just one room and the staircase. So yeah, it's one of those things. I was just experimenting. You can see here I just took previous Roman things I had made with the Corinthian temple, and I just sliced the pediment off and I put some pilasters. I tried to make it square. You know, like one of those good English manor houses. But it doesn't, it's alright for a first attempt, which is what everything in this world is, a very first attempt. But, like with a lot of things you've seen today in this world, it just doesn't quite work. But you can see, I hope today, in this world, you can see the very first versions I made of all of these things. And, oh, I hit the button too many times. I think you can see the very first versions of things. You can see the very first time I tried to make the Hagia Sophia. You can see my first Colosseum, the first Hippodrome, the first Gothic Cathedral, first Pantheon, the first Parthenon, the first Triumphal Arch, you know. Everything that I've taken and refined since then and rebuilt more than once, it all first started in this world here. And let me get some altitude to see just how much of this world I can even load in. So we can get a little perspective on the city. Okay, well, I think about as far as we're going to get on it. But yeah, so you can see various things that would show up later with, like, you know, the central cathedral, the plaza, the buildings arranged around it, the roads, the triumphal arches, everything. Just everything that I do today first started here 10 years ago. So I think that's going to wrap up the 20,000 subscriber special. I hope that you have had a lot of fun walking through my old world here. Remember, you can download it. Come here if you want to. I think there's, you know, I couldn't, you know, look at every last little thing I've done. I tried to hit the high points and give you some lessons that I learned along the way. I don't really like to critique others' builds too much, but when it comes to my old stuff, you know, I like to give myself some, you know, some fairly withering criticism. But then again, I did not know back then everything I know how to build today, so maybe I was a little too hard on myself. But be that as it may, I hope you have enjoyed the special episode walkthrough of my old 10-year-old world, and perhaps whenever the next subscriber special comes along, we'll go take a look at the world I made after this one. But that might be a while. We're probably, I think 50,000 is probably going to be the next special if we're doing one for 25. And no telling when we will get there, but of course I appreciate, I should say I really do appreciate each and every one of you that subscribe to my channel to watch me, you know, build all these things and try and teach you how to build them as well. Because as you've seen today, I've been at this for quite a long time. And when I say building is, you know, kind of my passion, you can obviously tell that from all of this, I think. But just know that I don't take even one of you for granted, and I hope that you have gotten a lot of value from this channel over the years, and hopefully there will be a lot more to come in the future. So with that, for the last act today, I think right in front of the equestrian statue, I'm going to put down a chest, and in it I am going to leave you a cookie. So with that said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.